Welcome to another episode of the Lightspeed Investing Podcast. Today I've got Robert Heath Sr., who is a former teacher, attorney, and Marine Corps officer who is now an alignment architect, helping professionals be aligned with their purpose and explore a career that actually makes sense to them. How are you doing, Robert? Where are you zooming in from today?
Doing well, brother. Pleasure to be here. I am here from the now chilly Grand Rapids area of Michigan.
That's awesome, man. I was up there for some elite basketball training over the summertime, and it's beautiful up there, man. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. How
yeah.
cold is it now? In 50s, or
Now,
are
yeah,
we
it's in
talking
the
about 40s
50s
now?
and it's rainy and it
Okay.
was hailing yesterday and this morning. And so, yeah, we get like 4 seasons in a day sometimes.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. So listen, I'm excited to bring you on because your journey, even though it's a little bit different, I see certain parallels with mine, right? And I'm super excited to bring you on so that you can share your path and have the audience be able to benefit from some of the wisdoms, some of the pitfalls that you've learned to avoid, right? And go in more detail, you know. So how did you get started in business? Was it always in your blood, or was it something that you knew you had to pivot to, right? Because of certain
Yeah.
moments that happened in your life?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And it's so funny because when I look back at it, it feels like it was inevitable, but it was not something that I ever had the kind of constituency to do. So I've been involved in different business ventures. My dad was an entrepreneur and had started a trucking company, but I was, right. My dad's trucking company basically went bankrupt when I was a senior, junior, almost a senior in high school. And so we went from not having money to having money to not having money again. And that
Oof.
lack of stability was really crazy. I remember my last year of high school. So, we had a nice townhouse and there was me and I've got four brothers, three brothers and a sister. And so it's five of us. And then my parents, all seven of us, we went from living in our own place to having to live in my grandmother's 2-bedroom apartment as I finished up high
Hmm.
school. Um, and so I always had like this kind of vision and this dream of what entrepreneurship could be, but it was also extremely scary because it was like, am I going to be able to take care of my family? Am I going to be able to make things
Yeah.
work? Is that the pathway that I want to go? And so I always say, like, I went the opposite way of entrepreneurship for a very long time. I had kind of side hustles or things that I did on the side, but I always had a job. I always had a paycheck that was coming in, that was consistent. Um,
Yeah.
I was always figuring, like, when I was in school, I always worked at a place where you could get food, right? Because I didn't want to have to spend part of my paycheck on eating. So I worked at a place where they gave you food as part of working at the spot. So I worked at, I ran a Subway shop. I worked at Denny's. I worked at McDonald's. I worked at different places where there was food because that way I didn't have to spend money on food. I could always make sure that I was good. So
Yeah.
me becoming an entrepreneur is actually one of those things that it was a transformation because I had to stop being safe because safe led to regret for me. I remember when I was younger, you and I talked about this a little bit off camera, how I wanted to play basketball too. Like, being an NBA basketball player or a professional basketball player somewhere in the world was always kind of a dream of mine. But
Yeah.
school was the safe thing, and school was what my parents focused on. And so that's what I did. I went to school, I got 2 degrees. And during that period of time, I played basketball here and there. I never played for the school. And a lot of that had to do with focus on academics versus athletics, right? And something that was really interesting was after I graduated from school, I went and got my master's degree in teaching because I wanted to help and be part of the solution to, right? I'm from Chicago originally, seeing the
Mm.
different I always call it tale of two cities, right? Where I went to school versus where my friends lived and where my family lived and where I went to church. And so I got to
Okay.
see that there were two kind of Americas. There were two worlds that you lived in. And it wasn't because the people over here were so much better than the people over here. A lot of it had to do with what zip code were you born into? What things did you have access to, what resources? But more importantly, what experiences, what realities did you have access to? So
Hmm.
anyway, I went into teaching, coached basketball for a while, got to the point I got married, I had a daughter, and I was about 27 years old when I realized this. I was like, I'm never going to play basketball, right? Up until that point, there had always been time. I could always do it next year, later. I could always go and do something. But then when I got married, I had a daughter, and I realized that, like, no, this is like, that's gone, that's done. You're never gonna play
Yeah.
professional basketball. There was a sense of regret that I had never felt before in my life, because it was literally
Wow.
a dream had died, and I was like, I never want to feel this again. And a lot of the reason why I hadn't done it was because I had always been safe, right? Some of it was because I was so I skipped fifth grade. So I was younger as I went through school, right? I was always smaller. I didn't actually hit my puberty, my growth spurt and everything until I was a junior, senior in high school, right? Because I was a year older and my birthday's later in the year. So I was actually 2 years. Like, I remember I graduated high school. There were three of us that had the same birthday. I was 16. The girl who was in her right grade
Wow.
was 17. And then a friend of mine was
Mm,
18, and he had been held back and I had been pushed up. We were all three the
I see.
same birthday, different ages.
Right. Right.
But I say all that to say, the the experience there, everywhere I had went, it had been, I can play later, I can do stuff later. I had even went, I remember when I was in college, I was, getting good at basketball and getting comfortable. I was playing with a lot of the guys that played on the Illinois team, and a lot of guys who went to JUCOs or went to other places and played, and I was always able to hold my own. And I remember I went down to Costa Rica. I was studying abroad because I was a Spanish minor. I went and studied abroad for a semester, and I was down there and I was playing ball with the guys who were on the team that practiced in that area. And this was an international team. They would play in Colombia and Venezuela and Brazil and Panama and, right, Dominican Republic and everywhere. And I was playing with them, and I was giving their best player to business, right? So they were like, oh, we got to introduce you to our coach. You should come play with us, all the rest of the type of stuff. And it was crazy because I'm 20 years old. I'm kind of coming into my own as a basketball player, but I'm not quite graduated from school yet. And I'm in a country where I speak Spanish, but I don't speak contract level Spanish. I don't speak pay me money and have a job and be traveling all over the world level Spanish, right? I spoke Spanish enough where I could go, you could drop me off and I'll be good and I'll be able to get home, but that was about it. And what was so crazy about it was that was another one of those opportunities where I had an opportunity to go play, and I went the safe route. And so when I'm
Mm,
27, I'm remembering back on all of these times back when I was in seventh grade, and I'm playing ball in a pro am, not a pro am, but like a family reunion type basketball game. But it's, we're playing with, I'm getting to play up with the adults because I'm good enough to play with the adults. And the coach of a local high school was like, I want you to play on my team right now. Where you going? When you going to high school? How old are you? Like,
hmm.
and he was recruiting me at that point in time. And my mom wasn't going to let me go to that high school because it
Uh,
wasn't necessarily a great high school. Right.
for
But
the
all of these
academics.
things are right. All of
Yeah.
these things are playing back in my mind. And I'm like,
Damn.
I had opportunities, but I went safety, 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 safety.
Hmm.
And now my dream is dead. And it doesn't matter what I do. There's no way that I'm going to be able to go and resurrect it. And that was the moment where I was like, I'm never going to feel this type of regret again. And I kind of did an
Hmm.
inventory of my life, and there were certain things that I wanted to do in my life that I hadn't done yet. And one of those things was to go to law school. One of those things was to serve in the military, and one of those things was to build a business. And many of them I hadn't done yet because of some level of fear, because of some level of it's I'm not certain that it's going to go there, right? You hear me say this, you've heard me say this before, right? I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I didn't like to do things that led to the potential where I could make mistakes. And
Mm,
that failure, that regret, that, I won't say it cured me of it, but it definitely set me on the pathway to being a recovering perfectionist, instead of letting perfectionism and a fear of failure or a fear of rejection to set my day. And so that led me to going to law school, led me to becoming a Marine Corps officer, led me to becoming a serial entrepreneur.
wow. Yeah, man. But sometimes it's only in hindsight that you really feel that, not only feel the pain, but realize where you could have done better. Right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so funny. I
definitely.
mean, my whole pivot from medicine to entrepreneurship didn't really hit home until after I graduated college, when I realized I had sacrificed basketball all those years as well, and in a lot of different moments where it allowed me to realize, I'd probably be more happy chasing after being an NBA team owner as opposed to being a surgeon, right? But
Mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
don't you don't really know until you go through those things. So my number one thing for you is at least you figured it out, and now you're able to do something right before it's too late. Because the book that I read
Yeah.
during my master's was called On Living, which is game
Mm-hmm.
changing for me because it was essentially a compilation of people's regrets on their deathbeds, interviewed by a
Mm-hmm.
nurse, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
when you just
Mm-hmm.
go through enough stories, you're just like, wow, that's really pathetic. Like, wow, like how did that ever happen? You know, like the fact that you're looking back on something 30 years ago and you still haven't done something about it, right? And when you just compile so many references, what it did for me was I was like, I'm never going to be one of these people for sure,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
On my deathbed with loads of regret. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
really happy for you for that. So now that you have this clarity, what gets you excited?
Yeah.
Are you a full time alignment architect? Tell the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you do on a daily basis now?
Yeah, now great question. And so the answer to your first question is yes, I am fired up and excited about every day. And the reason is because I am actually living a life that's in alignment with my purpose, right? One of the big things that pivot kind of awakened in me was an understanding that I was chasing one path to the exclusion of all others and not being honest with myself about what my purpose was, about what I felt like I was supposed to be doing, about what was going to make me happy, but was also going to serve the world. I felt like there was the need to either pick, serve the world and do things altruistically, right? Or be selfish and take care of myself. And because I was not someone who considered myself selfish and focused on me, I did the things that I was supposed to do for society. I went to school and graduated and got my degree because that's what I was supposed to do for my family, because I was the first person
Mm,
in my immediate family to go straight through college and graduate and get a degree. I was setting a
gotcha.
standard for my brothers and sisters. When I got finished doing that, I went into being a teacher, right? Because community service and giving back to the community was something that was really important to me growing up. It was really important to my parents, and it was the thing to do. But I always had them kind of at odds with one another, where I couldn't take care of me and give back. I had to pick. There were those people who took care of themselves and were selfish, and then there were those people that gave back to the community. And I wanted to be part of the group that gave back to the community. And what I learned, right, again, in that moment of regret, was there is a sacrifice that I'm not willing to make. I'm not willing to sacrifice myself completely for the community, because in that experience, I'm not actually showing up fully to the community. As one of the things that I started to realize is, as I wasn't chasing my dreams, as I wasn't going after the things that were important to me, the longer that I tried to serve the community, the longer that I tried to help people, the more resentful I became, right? And I find a lot of my clients run through this experience where you become what I like to call is resentful martyr syndrome, right? Where you're constantly
Okay.
giving yourself up, you're constantly laying yourself down, you're constantly giving, 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 taking care of everybody else. And there
Mm,
becomes this kind of feeling like people don't respect the level of sacrifice that you're making for their benefit. And so it becomes this thing where people are constantly asking you for stuff, and it gets annoying and you don't want to do it anymore because you don't feel the reciprocity of it. But what I realized was that was about me, that wasn't about them. And the reason that it existed is because I was under the erroneous belief that I had to sacrifice myself in order to take care of the community. And I was just talking to a group today. I do a roundtable event a couple times a month, and I was talking to the group today about the difference between sacrifice and investment, right? And so many people look at sacrifice as the thing that we need to do. You got to be able to sacrifice. What are you willing to give up? And it's the wrong frame of reference to think about it. It's not about what you give up. Nobody gives up stuff because they're like, "Ooh, I want to give this up. That's what I want to do. I just want to give up all my stuff. That's what I want to do." Anything that we're quote unquote sacrificing, we're sacrificing for a better future. That's an investment. We plant seeds in the ground, not because we want to give up the seed and give up the meal that seed represents, but because what we really want to do is we want to reap the harvest of what that seed invested in this way can bring tenfold, a hundredfold, a thousandfold returns. And so what I learned was that I had to realize that I needed to invest in me, because when I invested in me, then the overflow of what I invested in me is available for everybody else. Instead of me being burnt out and tired and frustrated
that's right.
and upset,
Yeah.
right? I get to show up every day because I know what my purpose is. I align my life, I align my activities, I align my identity with what my purpose is. So every day I'm moving towards my purpose, and every day other people are being blessed. Other people are being able to reap the benefits of me
Mm.
walking in my purpose. And so when you ask the question, what's an alignment architect? What I do is I help other people to get unstuck, to not be in that space where you feel like you have to choose personal success or fulfillment, right? Where you get to
That's
actually
right.
have both. Because the reality is, when you are walking in alignment with your purpose, I believe everybody is here for a reason. Everybody has a divine purpose, that they have something that is special within them, and a seed of greatness within them. And when you can walk in alignment with what that purpose is, what you've been created for, it doesn't just bless you. It doesn't just make your life amazing. It makes the whole world amazing, because you begin to walk in abundance. And so as an alignment architect, I help people to get unstuck, to figure out what is the alignment space that they need to be in. What is the harmony of work and life and community and everything that they need to be walking in, instead of trying to do balance, where these things are, feeling like they're disintegrated and like they're separate. How do we integrate your life? How do we make it so that what you do at work positively impacts what you do at home, which positively impacts what you do in the community, which then gives you this virtuous spiral, so that every day you're getting better. And not only are you getting better, everybody around you gets better because you're better.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It reminds me of, the example that I always reference, which is the oxygen mask, right? And that's also
Mm-hmm.
what I experience in medicine. So the oxygen mask concept is when you fly an airplane, right? If you want to save the person next to you when a situation goes awry, you want to take care of yourself first and foremost. Because if you don't even have the ability to breathe and you pass out, how are you to help the other people, right? And for me, what I experienced in medicine, I thought it was so ironic because when you're getting trained as a doctor, you see doctors like sacrificing their lunch to take care of patients, and it's like overall, that is our job, but how are we supposed to serve if we're not able to be at the full cup?
That's
Because
it.
we're the like shouldn't we be the ones whose health is the most prioritized? Because
That's
first
it.
and foremost, there's not that many specialists out there, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
if anything, the patients can wait on the doctor because the doctor needs to be at full health, right? Otherwise,
Exactly.
what good is it if doctors are sick? So I
Exactly.
always thought
Exactly.
that was contrary to what we were looking to accomplish, and that's one
Yeah.
of the many reasons I left medicine because of
Yeah.
the system is
Yeah. No,
quite broken. But
it
absolutely,
makes
man,
perfect
a
sense.
hundred
It makes
percent.
perfect sense. And the funny thing about that data, right? And this being in the medical field, tired doctors, hungry doctors, right? Overworked doctors make the most mistakes. And so in the long term, those hospitals actually have the worst health outcomes, the ones that are working their doctors too much. The doctors that get sleep, the doctors that get the proper rotations, et cetera, have better health outcomes for their clients.
Well,
So
it's
it's,
not
again,
even
it's one
just
of those things.
doctors.
Mm-hmm.
It's just people. I mean,
Yeah.
people who are sleep deprived are the most susceptible to order like that's how they torture people, right? It's they sleep deprive
Mm-hmm.
you, and then they make sure you have your will is so weak it's hard to fight back. That's how they
Exactly.
indoctrinate you into cults or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? Into
Exactly.
environments that you normally would not succumb to, but because they've weakened your mental bandwidth, right? It's a whole lot easier to convert you, so to
That's
speak.
it.
So I
Yeah.
think it's more so even it just transcends even doctors. It's just how people are.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And that's the thing that, that I realized was that was what I was doing. It's what so many
Yeah.
of my clients are struggling with. Most of the people that come to me are high achievers, high performing people who have already accomplished the first bit of what they're trying to do, which is the
Yeah.
what can I do in life, right? Am I good enough? If I put my mind to something, if I focus on it, can I make it happen? Most of my clients have already kind of climbed that mountain. They've already gotten to the point where
Mm,
they know that if they put their mind to something, they can do whatever they put their mind to.
that's
Then you get
great.
faced with the second great question of life, which is, what should I be using my time to do?
Right. So
And
are these
that's the
more
one
like
that so
like
many people struggle with.
are these your fellow legal attorneys, peers? What is their occupation, usually speaking, or
Yeah,
do
no,
they
good
run the
questions.
gamut of everything?
Yeah, so I work with largely professionals, high paying professionals, so attorneys, doctors, finance professionals. But then I also work with CEOs, business owners, and C suite personnel. in different occupations. Largely, the people that I'm generally working with, like I said, have already reached a level of extreme, or not extreme, but external success. They're the people that everybody looks at them and says that you're successful, you've made it, you've gotten it.
Right. Right.
And these are the people that are generally at a level where they're unfulfilled with that success. And they're unfulfilled with that success because there's another part of them that's saying, but I should be spending more time at home. I should be spending more time in the community. I should be doing more. They have those regrets. They have those things that are not getting done because they felt like they had to, like I was before, like you had to pick one
Right.
or the other. Right. And
Yeah.
so what we do, what I generally do with my clients is try to help them get aligned and realize that it's not a either or. You don't have to fall or succumb to the tyranny of the or. Right. There is a
Mm.
both and solution. There is a
I love
synergistic, a
that.
transcendent
I
solution.
love that. Yeah, because it's never about, do you want this flavor or that color for me? It's always been, we have it all. It's
Exactly.
all, the answer's always both.
Exactly. And allowing themselves to believe that and then to go and seek after that and figure out how to deal with the limiting beliefs, how to deal with the unconscious biases that they bring with them from childhood and from other experiences and from trauma, so that they can overcome those limiting beliefs and those negative mindsets and move themselves to the point where they don't have to sacrifice one or the other, that they make
Mm.
investments and they understand the purpose of those investments, and that they make harmonious investments such that when they put the parts of their lives together, they create a synergistic resonance where 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2 anymore. It can equal 10 or 1,000 or 1,000,000.
So when you work with these individuals, do you see the process as being more like, hands on? It doesn't just take a one time meeting, right? What is
Mm-hmm.
the duration of your architecting, right?
Yeah,
So to
no, great
speak.
question.
How long does it
So
take?
So generally, I work with clients for our initial alignment accelerator program is a 6 session program, and it normally is about a 90-day, 12-week program.
I see.
And what happens during that period of time is we develop with them two major things. Number one, we develop what we call a car, right? You got to get a car. You got to have, if you're going to go somewhere, you're going to go somewhere fast, you want to get a vehicle, right? So we develop their car, which we call our compelling and achievable result. We get them very crystal clear on what they're trying to accomplish. And then we build a map, right? A massive action plan. What are the actions that you're going to take towards that plan? And over that period of time, when I'm working with them, there's not just, intellectualizing, right? Because everybody is good at problem solving from an intellectual perspective at this level. My clients are very intelligent. They've watched all the TED Talks. They've gone to the seminars. Some of them have written books on the topics that we're talking about, right?
Mm.
But the issue is not that they don't know what they should be doing. The issue is they don't know why they're not doing what they should be doing. And what I help them to understand and to uncover are the blocks and the obstacles that are in the way of them doing what they know they should be doing. And then over our time working together, they're able to move much quicker. I always like to say, if you've ever driven a car that's out of alignment, it still runs, it still goes. What happens is, when you're going 15, 20 miles an hour, when you're not doing too much with it, you don't even know it's out of alignment. It's not until you start going about 25, 30, 35 miles an hour, it starts kind of pulling, tugging to the side of the road. You get up to about 40, 45, and it's just a little bit of a pull, a little bit of a tug. But then you go and try to get on the expressway and it starts just vibrating and shaking and rumbling. And you're like, what is going on? And it feels like something
Yeah.
is horribly wrong with the car. When you take it to the mechanic, what you find out is the transmission is fine, the engine is fine, right? The fluids are all good. It's just a couple of millimeters out of alignment,
It's the alignment.
right?
They
But
didn't
that
they say something like,
misalignment,
well, I was gonna say, didn't they say something like a couple degrees off on like a ship can lead to
yeah,
wreckage,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Especially if
It's
you're,
all kind of crazy stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
So for example, if
yeah,
you're in an airplane from LA to New York, and you're 1 degree off of your path, you'll
yeah,
either end up in
yeah. That's right.
Boston, right? You can be in Boston
That's
or you can
right.
be in
That's the
DC,
yeah. Either
right?
I think it's true for both like the air pilots as well as the captains of the ship, right?
Exactly.
So
And
no, that
that's the
what you're
power of
doing is
alignment.
right. What you're doing is very important, and I'm glad that we have someone like you to offer that. Just so you know, if you were to work with me, it's going to probably take more than 90 days because I demand a Rolls Royce, with the stargazing ability and
There
everything.
we go. There we go. No,
Like
and no matter who it is, what we do is we get that car picked out, and that's the first 2 sessions. We call that our defining success sessions, because so many
yeah,
people are very good at talking about what they don't want. Like all of us know what we're trying to avoid, what we're trying to go away from. But the problem about talking about what you don't want is away motivation is very interesting. When you're away motivated, like there's a lot of people that don't want to be poor. So they move away from poverty, right? But here's the funny thing when you're moving away from something that you don't want, the further you get away from it, the less motivation you have to keep getting further away from it. Right. And so you have to get closer to it to be motivated again so that you get further away from it. There's a difference between away motivation and toward motivation. What we do is we figure out what is it that is drawing you? What is it that is calling you? What is it that is your purpose? And how do we make sure that everything that you do and that your identity and that your activity are in alignment with that purpose so that as you get closer to the thing that you love, your motivation increases, it doesn't decrease. And once you have that,
And
once
yeah,
we've defined success, now building the plan to get from here to there is so much easier. And sticking with the plan to get from here to there is so much easier. Many of my clients wind up in the time that we're together, they have, things that they didn't think they would be able to accomplish in 12 or 15 months that they accomplish in 3 to 6 months.
that's amazing, man. And that's what happens when you are truly aligned, right? When you know your purpose and you have no doubt about it, you just go after it, right? So because you're
That's it.
removing all the roadblocks to make sure that the path is a whole lot more easy to actually fly or
Mm-hmm.
drive or sail,
Mm-hmm.
right? Regardless of what it
Mm-hmm.
is. But that's why it's the accelerator. Now, my quick question to you is when you're working with these people, right? Like, how do you differentiate yourself? Is it just a one on ones? Do you also have
Mm-hmm.
tools and resources? And how do they find you, right?
Yeah, no, good question.
Because
So
obviously,
So all of the above is the answer. So in my alignment accelerator program, that's a one-on-one program. We do have some other programs. We have Thriving in Chaos program, which is a group coaching program that's really designed on taking people from kind of managing their time and managing other people's priorities with their time to really owning their time. We've got a number of different programs, but the easiest way to get in touch with me is just to go to my website. It's just robertheathsenior.com. That's Robert, Robert, Heath, Heath, senior, sr.com. And then you can find all the stuff that you need to find from there. It talks about you can get to the academy, which is where we do a lot of our personal development and professional development training
mm,
in our Legacy Builders Academy. But most of the work that I try to do with people, we have self-implementation. So I've written a couple of books, so you can get a book. You can see right behind me right there, Thriving in Chaos is one of the books that we talk about, how to master your time. Another thing that we do is I run, if people are just wondering, have a question, want to figure something out, I do what are called clarity calls. And this is just a quick, 25 minutes that I open up my calendar a couple of times a month for people to jump on there. If they've got something where they're feeling stuck and they just want to figure out what their next step should be, that's a service that I offer generally only to, when I'm on podcasts or things like that. So your clients and your listeners will be able to get access to that. That probably be in the show notes somewhere.
okay, awesome. So again, visit the website robertheathsenior.com and you can go ahead and look at the free resources that Robert has to offer. Get yourself a clarity assessment call, and Robert can
Mm.
help figure out what are the best first steps for you to get aligned with the purpose that you are destined for. And again, thanks so much, everyone. This Robert, thanks again for being here. This has been an amazing conversation. I look forward to speaking to you more on this topic again. And until next time, I'll see ya. Take care now.
Appreciate you having me, brother. Take it easy, everybody.